So like I said, we have two panels, and we're gonna start with the panel in the finance industry. And so I'm gonna bring on screen now Johan Kestis from BNY Mellon, Axel Schell from Allianz Technology. Anna Maria Rico is in a board meeting at this moment, which is very unfortunate, so she can't be with us, but she's from AXA Italia. Slavomir Sozinski from ING Bank in Poland is with us, and Natasha Davidova from Allianz Technology in London. So let me add everybody to this stream and show all the beautiful people that we have in this panel here today. You can all unmute yourself so that you can join into discussion. And let me maybe start by saying that all of you are finalists in the European Digital Leader of the Year awards program, and something very special must be cooking at Allianz, because both in London, our UK team have selected Natasha from Allianz Technology as a finalist for this award, and our German team has selected Axel Schell and our advisory board there. So we're looking very much forward to hearing what is special at Allianz these days from all of you. So what I want to do is do a quick round of the table, and maybe Natasha, if you could unmute and do a quick introduction. So if you tell us who you are, so you obviously work for Allianz Technology. What exactly is your function there? What are you busy with? And if you would not have become a digital leader, what would have been your career? Would you be an opera singer, or what was the dream when you were much younger? Because I cannot imagine that most of us had the dream to become a CIO or a top digital leader. So Natasha, please introduce yourself.
Thank you very much, Hendrik, and thank you, Niels, as well, and thank you for the CIONET. I'm very honored and humbled to be part of this session and part of this event. I have global responsibility for infrastructure and information security. I'm looking after data center and cloud services, network services, digital workplace, and information security, which we in Allianz Technology provide to over 60 operating entities within Allianz Group. We have been going through a lot of transformation last year and this year. We have rolled out Office 365, WebEx, Microsoft Teams, passwordless authentication to 160,000 users. We have been going through a lot of transformation and implemented software-defined wide area network connecting over 1,700 locations globally. We also have done further consolidation of our data centers, and we have massively moved on the cloud with our partners, cloud providers with AWS and Azure. So there has been quite a lot of work which have been doing and continue to do very, very exciting work. And I also want to take the opportunity to say thank you to all of the teams within Allianz Technology who contributed massively to the digitalization and success of Allianz Group. So thank you for giving me this platform. With regards to my career and what I wanted to do when I was a child, I was originally thinking of biology, but then over time I thought maybe not. And if I didn't go to IT, I would probably be a broker. And I don't mean insurance broker, but I mean someone who is bringing different parties together, the parties which need the solution and the parties who actually have the solution. And I think what energizes me most is the actual outcome and bringing all the different parts together to get the fantastic results at the end. So that I would do something along those lines. But I think I'm already probably somewhat doing that as well. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Natasha, for that introduction. Johan, if I could invite you to introduce yourself. What are you busy with nowadays? And if you would not have been a CIO, what would have been your role? What would have been your dream when you were young?
Thank you very much, Hendrik. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to be here. It is my pleasure. So, what do? I care about cyber and information security at BNY Mellon. And BNY Mellon is the bank of banks. It is the custodian of approximately a quarter of all of the wealth in this world in terms of securities, real estate, and so on. And it does a lot of other things related to that. It's a truly global company. It operates in over 100 markets. And of course, a global role means that you get a perspective on many, many different markets. Now, what do I worry about today? And as Natasha explained, we all have our projects ongoing. We're moving to the cloud. We're introducing artificial intelligence. I spend a lot of my time um, going for custody of crypto assets, be it non-fungible tokens or some of the, let's say, more stable cryptocurrencies. Um, and that, of course, given the advancements in technology and the new elements coming along, that keeps us very busy. But I have a big worry that supersedes that a little bit.
Okay. Well, we're going to talk about worries and the crisis that's keeping us awake at night in our businesses in the moment, Johan. If you would not have become a CIO because you have a long career in digital leadership, what would you have become? What was your dream when you were
Probably a musician, either a blues pianist or leading a jazz combo or maybe a conductor. I do that as a hobby nowadays.
Okay.
And at the age of 16, there was this choice I needed to make whether I wanted to go more the classical educational route, mathematics and engineering, or whether I wanted to devote my life to music. And I really love music. And I thought I will always love it, but will I love it when I have to do it 12 hours a day? I wasn't not sure. I was not sure that would be the case. So I chose the safer route. I knew engineering had so many, let's say, areas and facets that I could always find um, an area I loved.
Okay. Thank you so much for that introduction, Johan, and welcome to the panel. Let's go to Slavomir. Slavik, if you can unmute and please tell us a little bit more about yourself, your company, your position, and what was your dream when you were younger?
Absolutely. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for the invite. It's a great pleasure to be with you here today. Looking forward to have a great panel. So my name is Slavek Soszyński. I'm working at ING Poland. I'm a CIO and also the management board member. So I have two hats, obviously. One is to manage technology, all aspects of technology, starting from infrastructure, security, development, delivery, maintenance, just everything what is related to technology. But also have a second hat, which is obviously management, board management, which means that I have a responsibility to manage code the bank. So slightly wider as well. As you know, the ING Poland is a part of the ING group, widely recognized brand, I would say. Poland is one of the biggest entities in the group. At the same point of time, ING Poland is definitely the biggest commercial bank in Poland. So we have a few million customers, which obviously we're happy about this. What you asked me what I'm spending my time most of the time. Like, look, we doing at this moment the largest transformation ever in the history of the bank. It's also one of the biggest digital transformation that is ongoing through the financial sector in Poland. So everyone are watching on our hands. We are the leader here. And as you know, maintaining the leadership position requires quite a lot of work. You asked what I would do if I would not be the CIO. I would say I had two choices, to be fair, because I love research, and I still keep it up, at least trying. And then I would definitely continue my university career as the quantum physicist, which is my background. And maybe on a little bit on lighter side, I would be a professional cooker, which and running a couple of restaurants and probably some Italian or Spanish kind of cuisine. That's what I love the most. So yeah, that's me.
Very
And thank you
interesting.
very much for being
An academic career, and hospitality, restaurant career, or a CIO career, three completely different ones. And we're very happy that you choose for the third option so that you're with us here today, Slavek. Let's go to Axel. Axel, and first of all, I would like to thank you to get up so early this morning, Axel, because today you are in San Francisco, and it is, what is it there, 5, 6 o'clock in the morning. So tell us a little bit more about yourself, Axel. What is your position, and what would you have become if you were not a CTO?
Yeah, thanks, Hendrik, and big thank you also to the CIONET team, and I'm honored to be here, and a pleasure to tell a bit about myself and about Allianz Technology as well. So my role is CTO in Allianz Technology, and Allianz Technology is basically the IT of the Allianz Group. So we decided to bring all IT colleagues into one team, into one company. They still sit distributed locally in the various countries, but they have one home base. They belong to Allianz Technology. And as a CTO, I'm trying to crack business problems with IT. I try to be as close as possible to the business and understand what's currently going on. And therefore, lots of projects are currently going on. We try to decommission lots of applications to simplify our infrastructure, our landscapes, our applications, whatever is possible, our product as well. So this is where IT also is very close to the business when it comes to product simplification. That also helps then to simplify the platforms and the IT below that. When I was a kid, I did play tennis a lot, and before I decided to study and do something else, I always wanted to organize a tennis tournament. So I was totally fascinated by the tennis players and the circus and people more or less coming to such a tournament, the preparation. So maybe that would have been something for me to organize one or two big tournaments in a year. Maybe that is something I still can do in later years. Let's see.
Okay, so with that, I think we have introduced everybody. So let's introduce the topic of the discussion today, Niels. Niels, we live in special times, right?
It's. I mean, look at this list, right? And the first question for the finalists on this panel is related to this list, right? You've got all these different crises that are occurring, and unfortunately, this seems like it's going to be the new normal, right? All of this unpredictability generated by the recession, by climate change, by the energy crisis, etc. Who knows what this list will look like 6 months from now, but it'll probably be quite similar and filled with uncertainty. So we'd love to hear from you about how are these crises affecting your organization? What is the crisis that is affecting your organization the most? And can you please provide us with some examples about how it's affecting your organization? And any of you can jump in.
Okay, maybe I could start if that's fine with everyone.
Sure.
I think you're absolutely right, and we have economic impact of climate change, energy crisis in Europe, supply chain backlogs, inflation, increasing geopolitical complexity and volatility, and all those other challenges you mentioned, inflation and so on. I think I would add also cybersecurity threat as well, increased cybersecurity threat, which wasn't mentioned in the original list, but everyone is fully aware. Some of the examples how the crisis affected us. Certainly, we have seen already in the data center space. We have, but also I'm sure you see it across different industries. We have seen the energy bills, especially for data centers, going up, and us looking and thinking out of the box how we can actually reduce that. Cybersecurity also has been a big focus of ours, and we have been investing heavily in further strengthening our security posture. In addition to that, I would say that supply chain backlogs, which hit us last year, have been quite important for us to resolve, and we have been working with our major partners and suppliers, and also sometimes thinking out of the box how we can actually reduce this dependency. And we even went to breaking down our contracts to smaller but actually get the deliveries of smaller, smaller sizes of our contractual agreements for specific hardware. Just to give you a few examples. Of course, other examples are related to foreign exchange and geopolitical volatility. And we see that because we have operating entities around the world, some of the currencies have been suffering from this geopolitical volatility. And as a result, because the customers are charged in particular currencies, let's say in euros, they actually, and I talk about internal customers, they say that the technology becomes more expensive. So we need also to think how we could take that into account and find internal resources to actually help our customers and also manage our budgets. These are just some examples, but I think in terms of how basically how we're managing that as well, I suppose we will discuss that a little bit later. I think what is affecting us as well is that geopolitical situation. Also, we need to think about how we can use AI, blockchain, 5G without falling victims to geopolitically based regulatory or reputational crossfire. How we have our talents retained, reskilled, how we move away from that energy dependency, perhaps accelerating our move to the cloud, reinventing the customer engagements as we move our products online. But I think with all those crises, for me, the important point to say that we need to not to forget about technology for sustainability and the climate change, because it tends to go kind of into the back burner. But I think this is something which we need to be aware of. And of course, with the security, we need to address the enormous benefits, but also enormous risks of data, because we are very much responsible in front of our customers and society for the data our customers entrust us. So therefore, there is quite a lot. And my last maybe comment would be how the companies can, how we're dealing with that. There are short, medium term, and long term actions. In terms of short term actions, when the crisis began, or I think it kind of flew from the COVID crisis to other crises. We set up the crisis response unit. We call it Global Crisis Unit, which comprised of different experts from Allianz Group, me representing technology and cybersecurity. We had excellent experts who were representing medical perspective, operations, HR, where we could discuss and develop the mitigation strategies. Medium term, we held briefing sessions and discussions to focus on three risk areas: brand and reputation, operational risks such as cybersecurity strategy, and products and services and partnerships. And last but not least, long term. As part of long term planning, we conducted exercises to assess our response to game changing scenarios. As an example of that was CBEST exercises, which we have done with regulators, not actually to find faults, but actually find some gaps if we had them, and to learn from them and close those gaps to ensure we are prepared, and we have long-term planning as well, how to cover the issues I have just discussed. So thank you very much.
That's astounding, and it's a really wonderful, comprehensive overview of the myriad ways that all these different crises are affecting, as you say, the immediate, medium term, and longer term objectives. And I love that as part of that, you're bringing in the regulators to make sense of these and its an impact. Who else can add to this already pretty broad list?
Yeah, maybe Slavek or Johan, in your organizations, what is the number one? Because Natasha gave a beautiful overview of, and there's many crises. But if from all of these you had to select one, Slavek, what's the one that you would say that is impacting ING or the banking industry in general the most today?
I think there's because the list of crises was we can talk about this very long, because obviously there is some very known cases which are global or regional crises that impacting selected market or all markets, right? That's important to understand. The maturity of the market is also different in different areas, so not every crisis is equal from region to region or country to country. That's key. I would say for me, the most important is at this moment is definitely kind of a side effect of COVID, war in Ukraine. It's basically great resignation and finding right talents and that's happening across Europe. And obviously, demand supply on that side is very affecting financial sector specifically, because obviously we have a great competitors like software houses, fintechs, startups, different type of companies which are trying to take our best people, and we have a new generation of new demographics coming on the market, which has completely different understanding and needs for the employers. And I would say the long-term crisis is definitely the biggest one amongst all of them. For me, is a climate crisis, which will affect, I don't know if my generation, I don't know, I think it's maybe not yet, or not anymore, but definitely my children, so this is something that we should definitely pick up the fight and fight very strongly for our future. And the other crises will happen. There's obviously there is expression black swans. I don't really particularly like this one because it says it's something like it's unexpected. Of course, those events are unexpected, but they're mostly related, to our lack of understanding of how complex is the world, lack of complexity, how everything is connected now. So that's why.
Yeah,
but
it's like you are in Warsaw, so you from all of us, you're closest to Ukraine. Do you see a direct impact that you're so close to the war? Could you describe that a little bit for us?
Yeah, of course. I mean, look, we were on the front line, so it's interesting to see that country occurring 3 million refugees and seeing them on the streets, seeing a different language, seeing how the kind of population and the agenda of the country completely changed before the war. And so that's kind of fascinating for me. I'm really scared that we, as the mature Europe, allowed to have a military conflict in the middle of, well, maybe not in the middle of Europe, but still in our neighborhood. I see this as a conflict of, to be fair, as a global conflict between two kind of US and China, and some of the countries supporting one side silently, and some countries are not supporting at all. So that's I think it's affecting all of us. Although if you go to West of Europe, probably some countries and nations think that it's less than others, and we have lessons in the history that it happened in a very similar scenario, right? So I'm really worried about this. I think we need to support Ukraine as much as possible. It's our future as well. I think the effect of this will be, and you can hear that from different politicians actually in Europe, that the supply chain will completely change. So are we talking about the deglobalization rather than globalization further? I think the globalization will continue, but to some extent it will be stopped, like in the the points like I don't know, semiconductors production or rare materials, core engineering. And we have examples, right? Intel building a factory in Germany, right? That's important because if there will be something serious ongoing in Taiwan, and we know it's ongoing, the whole world will stop. So, right? So we need to do something about this. So some elements I think will be deglobalized, and we have to remember one truth, right? Those nations who has the access to the better technology, they win. So that's why technology is so important.
Absolutely, also in that domain, certainly. Axel, you wanted to share where you see the impact on the Allianz business. I mean, it's a huge organization. What was it? 160,000 people, global. So you must feel this so for you, what's the most important one?
Yeah, so it's very difficult to pick a crisis because all of them affect us in a certain way. I would also pick the geopolitical instability, and the reason why I would pick it is also it has two components. I mean, for an insurance, it's always important to understand how risks evolve and change in the future. That's one thing that is quite unpredictable. And then, of course, also lots of the markets are totally impacted by this instability. So there's actually two components. Your risk exposure changes significantly, and you, on the other side, you're a big asset manager. As an insurance, your asset management strategies also have to be adjusted. And then another reason why I would pick it is I'm quite close to this topic. I also have a family from the Ukraine living with us since April in our house. And I learned lots about other countries, about their culture, about the challenges that they have. It's a mother with 2 kids. And for them, it's not easy, but I have seen so many good developments also in Germany, people supporting those families. And we did the similar thing in Allianz. We donated over 12.5 million euros humanitarian assistance for the Ukraine. That was all employees. It was matched up by the company, but lots of employees donating. And we have also done lots of initiatives. So, for example, we have offered all our people, I mean, we have operations in the Ukraine as well as in Russia. So difficult times for us. We are getting out of the business in Russia as quickly as we can. I'm part of that demerger activity that is currently going on, and we will sell the business. But we also had lots of employees that were there, and where we just said, whoever wants to work with us, also leaving the country and is looking for IT jobs, we were open to offer them either in Poland, where we have a company that where we can employ people. And I think that was also very well appreciated by the employees, and seen that it's not only about business, it's also about the humans behind that. And those made a big difference.
Okay, super.
I was going to say that's a nice segue. And Johan, maybe you could address the implications then of all of this on how do you lead through this crisis. And we just heard from Axel a nice example of leading by example. But can you elaborate on the role of leadership in this?
Yeah, maybe to set the stage for how you lead in these type of crises, a slightly contrarian point of view. But I think at any point in time in the last 30 years, you could have said that there was a lot ongoing in the world. At any point in time, there was armed conflict. I think what we insufficiently appreciated is that we had about 10 or 15 years of the lowest interest rates in 500 years. So the question is, what is the normal? Is it the period we are leaving, or is it the new period we are entering? But that being said, I think there are a couple of very serious challenges where our leadership style should accommodate for. And the first one, I think, is the most important one, which is climate change. And the reason why it is the most important one, and will be for many years, is twofold, in my opinion. Number one, nobody can solve it on their own. We really need everybody to work together to solve it. And the second reason is it will take years of concerted effort to at least contain it. So that is, in my opinion, of a different size than inflation or an armed conflict. And I don't mean to minimize it. I think it is pretty tough, but it can also probably, at least the violence can be stopped, let's say, in a couple of months, if people want that. That's not the same with climate change. So that stands out. The second thing where you, as a leader, need to be very careful about is the deglobalisation, because it will force you to retreat if you are a global player like we are, or to deal with additional complexity of that. And I think that is a very important thing. Now, how to be a good leader in all that? I believe the qualities of a good leader are probably constant over time. But, you know, exceptional circumstances create exceptional leaders. And I think, excuse me, I think what is very important is that when faced with particular difficulties of global or local nature, we should fall back on what I call the basic of leaderships. And the basics of leadership for me have to do with humbleness, authenticity, courage. And if you just need more of those as the times may be getting more difficult. But the fundamental posture as a leader will not change. You will have to care about other people. You will have to dare to bring bad news. You will have to have the courage to stand up for your convictions. The topic may change. The subject or the scope of the subject may change, but the qualities are probably pretty constant.
Thank you. Who else can elaborate on the role of digital leaders in helping your respective organizations navigate these crises?
Maybe I could step in very briefly
Please.
here. I think in today's world, and ever-changing reality, the leader needs to be able to toggle the daily management and lead the transformation at the same time. And I think the leader needs to act fast, but also sometimes stop and think. And it's like that book, Thinking Fast and Slow, because sometimes if you are doing too many changes and all they happen at once, that might not be really efficient. And for me, I don't know whether any of you, if you followed my blogs and LinkedIn, I published a few ideas of what leadership means in such times. And for me, it has the abbreviation of GREAT. And I will start with the last letter. Letter T is trust, because building and maintaining trust plays a really crucial part in the role of today's leaders. And I think the transforming the organization requires the leader to be a bit like trapeze artist. A trapeze artist must trust other team members and vice versa while flying through the air, and recognize the moment for letting go of the old pair of hands and reach out to another trapeze. And being up in the air and completely ungrounded sometimes must feel comfortable to them. And that's similar to what digital leaders leading the digital transformation might experience at times, the courage to feel comfortable in being uncomfortable. And the other letters in GREAT, G stands for grace. It's not about you, it's about the team. R stands for the resilience. E stands for emotional intelligence, which was mentioned already. And A stands for acknowledgement of the successes your team has achieved. And T, as I said, it's about about trust. And I think also the role of digital leaders here, the last but not least, the CIONET role is here really important, because CIONET provides us the platform for digital leaders to have the ability to share our knowledge, and to strengthen, us jointly across various industries. So I would really again thank you for giving us that platform. Thanks a lot.
Maybe if
Great
I may,
here. Thank you so much, Natasha, for the compliments. Sorry to interrupt you, Jon. Please go ahead.
if I may add one thing, which is specific for chief technology officers and CIOs. It still happens to me that I deal with my colleagues, executives, and they don't really understand technology, or they don't really understand cyber. And cyber is pretty pervasive. It's like getting sick. You don't see it. Yeah, you get contaminated and you don't see it. And one of the things we have to do as a profession almost, it is to be able to demystify. And I'd like to come back to the point of Natasha, to inspire the trust that we understand what technology does, cannot do, and also the risks, by the way, associated with it. And that therefore they should continue down the path of increasing usage of technology for automation and better customer experience and so on. And that's quite specific to our profession. I think that, many executives still say, oh my God, I really don't know what's going on in the technology side of the house.
Okay. What I suggest...
May I, Henrik, one more thing?
Yeah, please.
This is all good, like what Johan and Natasha said. The one thing I would add from my experience, at least, is that you as the leader, first of all, you need to believe in your mission, vision, or strategy that you're presenting, because there's nothing worse than you put something on paper, communicate to the teams, and then you move away from that, right? So leader needs to be in the change that is happening. Is it a crisis? Is it a regular project? Is it something else? And you fail and have a success with your team. That's the key. And I've seen so many examples of leaders who are just communicating the change and thinking that it's magically will happen, and then they surprise the year later nothing happened, right? So leader needs to be in that change, and crisis will happen. For me, the only I'll give you the example. If we look on the SP500, right? Average time when the companies are staying on that stock exchange is 7 years now. So in our lifetime, that index potentially will change the life of all the companies that are there, right? And that's very important, because I think the only factor measuring today is the speed of how fast you can introduce the change, because then you can either to align to the change that's happening. Is it a crisis or need? Or you die. That's simple like that.
Okay. We have a question from from one of the people in the audience, and that's around boldness. I mean, if we live in a period of crisis, sometimes we have to take very unpopular and harsh decisions, maybe as well. So Axel or somebody else in the panel here, do we have to be more bold in the times of crisis as a leader than normally?
I think some of the decisions are maybe a bit more difficult because there is more stakes in the game. So if you have calm and easy days, I mean, the question is how often does it really happen? But if you don't have multiple crises running at the same time, I think you have more time also to think about certain activities. I'm fully with Slavek that it's no longer about the big ones eat the small ones. It's the fast ones that eat the slow ones. So it really changed a lot. I totally agree. And the crisis is an accelerator, and that means you have less time for certain activities. You need to make bold decisions. I mean, sometimes to get out of a market is a decision that can take you half a year, and you do lots of analysis, and maybe it's a good thing, maybe not, I don't know. But in crisis, you simply do not have that choice. You don't have that half of a year of a discussion. You need to be a lot faster. So our decision to exit the business in Russia was not something that took half a year to prepare and to get into those kind of activities. I think also crises are accelerators for certain things and activities. If you have always planned to do certain activities in a crisis, it's easier to do that because people much better understand that radical moves and bold moves are needed. So I don't know if you need more bold moves, but I would say it's easier to execute a bold move in a crisis. If everything runs smoothly, people just don't understand, why are you changing now something?
I want to maybe address the next topic of the discussion, and that is, we've discussed the impact of the crisis on our business, and certainly top priorities are climate, are the war, and the consequences of all that, and we discussed leadership and what kind of leadership that we need in this confluence of crises. But let's return a little bit to our day-to-day business on IT. What's the impact on Axel on your business today, on your IT business? I mean, you run a huge organization. What is it, 15,000 people in IT? So huge budgets. So how is your budget going to change and in the next year? Can you talk about that?
Yes. So I think first of all, the goal is still the same. We have to build and run a modern and resilient IT. There is no change needed, and that's what our goal before the crisis, and that will also be after the crisis. When it comes to money, it's more or less the same. I don't see us spending more money because of the crisis. Yes, there is of course inflation and stuff like that, but on the other hand, you also try to generate some kind of efficiencies, which is a standard activity for an IT person, also to see what you can do in order to improve. So I would say that's a relatively a stable budget. I think the key challenge is, and that's also totally independent of the crisis, how can you best spend the money? Sometimes I'm a bit in favor of having a shortage of money because it makes you just fight for the right activities. If you have too much money, you spend too much. You maybe do certain activities that are not 100% necessary. So it gives you kind of a natural push to make really sure you do the right things. So I expect that during a crisis, that pressure comes and people have more activities that are maybe needed, but you don't want to spend more, and that makes you, from my point of view, in a certain way, of course, also more efficient. And the key thing of efficiency is what kind of business value can you generate as IT with the money you spend for IT? Can you justify to the business that you need that money? Can you explain what you will do with the money? Those are, from my point of view, key considerations. I would think about.
Could you be a bit more specific? I mean, on your priorities, because it's all about priority. I mean,
yes.
We have limited budget, as core inflation is not helping that at all. So, are your priorities for 2023 changing compared to how you look at them in the beginning of this year?
So the answer is no. I think the what we still continue to do is, first of all, is run the business. So keep the lights on, no change needed and necessary. As I said, modern resilient IT is there. Then when it comes to change the money you spend in order to make a business successful, yes, you shift maybe some priorities in terms of business, but from an IT perspective, I don't see that. We still have our standard goals: decommissioning, customer centricity, simplicity. So those stay the same, and we truly believe in them independent of the crisis. We also believe in which markets we want to enter, and where we want to grow in terms of customer experience, the generation, automation. All of those activities are more or less the same. So it's, I think, doing the things with a super clear and even maybe more clear focus on the benefit.
Okay, very clear. Johan, I mean, if I could come to you, and then we'll go to Natasha and Slavik as well. I mean, BNY Mellon, huge international organization as well. What's the what do you see impact on both budgets and your priorities? Are your priorities for next year changing compared to the priorities of this year?
So I think Axel said it quite well. Our long-term business goals will not change. And therefore, what we need to do from an IT perspective for the longer term will not change. At the same time, in terms of recession or lack of economic growth, it's hard to expect that your budgets will go up. And every one of us knows the feeling there is always more demand than there is supply or that there is budget. However, I think our industry suffers from the fundamental asymmetry. It is easier to get new software or hardware or solutions in than to decommission old and existing ones. And there's a couple of reasons for that. For example, in a system with multiple users, it's the last one that turns out the light. And so there's always one who says, oh no, I cannot move because of this. But I think as an industry, and perhaps also outside the financial industry, we have created a huge opportunity for cleaning up our house, meaning unused software, underutilized hardware, excessive backup storage. There is a lot of efficiencies that we can get out of trimming our IT, let's call it landscape, and use the proceeds of that trimming to basically invest in new business needs. That being said, the inflation is also hitting our suppliers. So I think we need to warm ourselves up for some, how should I say, heartfelt conversations with our suppliers who will probably come to us and say, ooh, me being hit by inflation, poor man, multiple no longer 30, only 25. And we need to be able to cater for that as well. So it will be a tough discussion, but clearly, I mean, budgets are not going up. We will need to find these efficiencies, which probably have crept in our infrastructures in the last years.
And Johan, I mean, you're in cyber and you're a specialist in that and you're heading that and seeing that we're in a cyber crisis and cyber war in certain aspects. I mean, that budget must increase, no?
Well, the same is also true for cyber. We have quite a wide array of tools to help us getting better in cyber. And at the same time, the human factor, as everybody in cyber knows, remains the weakest link. So how can we increase the efficiency of our defenses? Of course, we will invest in cyber. We will stay ahead of the threats to our utmost degrees. We have regulatory-driven pen tests, like Natasha was explaining. We have those as well, and they are continuous learning opportunities. But you can always do better with the budget that you have as well. And I think also there we have not seen the end of the improvement potential. But for sure, cyber is a top point of attention and will remain so. But that's not an excuse to create waste.
Okay. Natasha, you want to chip in on that and add
Yes,
to that?
just wanted to mention that to what Axel was saying, that our strategy with bold moves has not changed. However, we also what I see and what I experienced, that during the pandemic crisis, we created a new hybrid working environment. And from infrastructure, it also means that alongside providing the communication and collaboration platforms, we also need to educate and to support our users more. The scope of IT support is broadening and increasing. It's a customer relationship management aspect, communication skills, storytelling skills as well, reskilling and upskilling our employees as well. I would also say that we also look much more closely how we can leverage IT talent pools in global organization as well. And I think, of course, when we talk about what, we need to talk about how. When we talk about what, and Axel mentioned that already, it's about further reducing complexity, reducing legacy and decommissioning, but also looking at developing and accelerating our journey to the cloud, using AI and cognitive automation, using more innovation to be more productive, more efficient. Also, I would like to mention that a lot of us are currently on the agile organization journey, and what it means the customer focus and product, not project focus anymore, and decentralized decision making. So it's adapting into this new environment as well. And when we talk about what, we talk about cloud, automation, agile, continuous learning. And then we talk about how. It's about trust again, it's about ownership, it's about personal growth for us as leaders and our teams. It's about further strength, mentality, and customer value as the main focus.
Okay, thank you so much, Natasha. Slavik, what's happening with the budgets and especially the priority at ING?
Look, nowadays banks are the software companies with the banking license, and I have a huge privilege to work in the company where executive of that company understand that very well. So we continue invest in our technology as much as we can, even by cutting some of the money in other areas, which is, they cannot be great message for me as the digital leader, right? That's one. From the budget perspective, I mentioned at the beginning that we do the one of the largest transformation, and obviously transformation needs fuel, and that fuel is being supplied, which is great news. Of course, it doesn't mean what Johan said, that with wasting money, there is a space, and we should do, and we do optimize and self-funding some of the initiatives to subsidize of some of the factors that are coming, right? Increasing inflation, increasing prices, talent changes, talent increases, different things that are happening. Priorities long term didn't change. Crisis for me, every single crisis for me is to some extent opportunity, but the same point of time is also a test for organization, how well and resilient we are from that perspective. So that's important. Short-term goals, I would say, or mid-term goals, sometimes changing because they obviously unpredictable, like war in Ukraine. We know that it was unpredictable, right? We had to adjust, and certain things on technology side also changed because of that. But long term it's not impacted. Budget is growing. Long term we do our stuff as we should do. Short term we do adjustments, yes.
Okay.
And it's curious. I'm finding when I study, especially financial services, echoing a lot of what you just said, all of you. There's a greater focus on reprioritizing based on impact, and that's impact relative to shifts in strategy, especially as you just said, with the short-term and medium-term objectives, not necessarily the longer-term objectives. And then increasingly, the scarce resource to reprioritize is less and less money and more about people. Trying to ensure that the people that the company has are going to those initiatives with the greatest impact, given the latest strategy shifts. And so I'm hearing that also. I don't know if that resonates with any of your experiences. Natasha, you mentioned the importance of really focusing on people and really building up that resource. I don't know if any others are also helping navigate this crisis by helping to reallocate people rather than just money.
Well, if I may, probably I should mention, because ING is very well known for its agile practices. It's a true peace DevOps culture and deployment as well. So that's actually, for me, to be fair, it's a given, because we actually realigning resources to the purpose that is creating the impact, the most meaningful impact, and that's the core. Obviously, the competence of the people needs to be always adjusted. So we have a huge programs around training that building that new competences, and that's important. We have to remember that's the key for as the technologies for us to train our people on different aspects, and that should never be stopped. That should be continuous learning, never stop learning, because you're going back then, including ourselves, right? We need to have a space to learn ourselves as well, because that's good if your leader doesn't know what's happening.
Okay. We've got 6 minutes left in this panel only. Time flies when you're having fun. So I want to give 1 minute to all of you, including you, Neil. So, I mean, we're in this very, very special times. What is your personal, if you take your crystal ball, where do you see this going? Are we going back to the good old days when we had no inflation and life was good and there was a stable and there was and so on and so on and so on? Where do you see us going in a couple of years? Who wants to take this first? 1 minute. Okay, Chinese volunteer. Axel, why don't you go first?
Yes, happy to do so. So I think that the last 2 years accelerated or also reverted lots of the customer and business habits. And I think lots of things will stay. They will not go away. I see a couple of things happening. So a bit of a provocative statement as well. I think robots will be our colleagues in the future. They will be next to us. I see a new area of medicine coming. So the shift of the world of medicine and also how we work with medicine. Then I would say that we unfortunately will run into an area of more inequality. I think that's a huge challenge for all of the governments to deal with that. Every government will have that challenge and they need to find a solution for that. I see energy prices will be higher in the future. They will not go down. Whatever we have experienced will stay like that. Those are the key challenges I foresee, and this is how the future will look like.
Okay. A pretty dark picture, I would say.
Maybe I could lighten it a little bit.
Prices stay high like that. But anyway, Natasha, you want to 1 minute more?
Yes, I think I foresee platforms and ecosystems becoming stronger. I see actually economic empowerment, and I mean empowerment will become more, in terms of more accessible to those ignored by traditional financial institutions. I can see it happening already. I think AI and machine learning will become ubiquitous. Web3 will revolutionize the way we do commerce. I think there will be focus on human experience. And by that, I mean, when we talk about metaverse, it's not technological, it's actually sociological shift for me, at the moment at least. Supply chains will become more intelligent. AI hopefully will help us to solve the food crisis in terms of the production and distribution, and education for our kids will become hopefully more practical, more experience-based, and using internet resources and experts available to move us all forward. So that's my view.
Okay. Thank you, Natasha. Johan, what's your picture of the future?
Let me take it in two very clear images. I think there will be a revival of the local pub and the local shop. Mm-hmm. And I mean by that people, consumers, could sort of get a little bit saturated with sharing digital content and may want to go back into the community again and have a beer with their neighbors or go shopping, and value that experience. On the risk side, one of my biggest nightmare is a major hack on AWS or Azure. I believe that would be worse than something like Fukushima in terms of impact on the world economy. And maybe it's something we need to go through to get to the next level of resilience. Regulators are pushing us for, to have backups on the backups of the backups, and to be able to run operations seamlessly in another country in seconds. And that's, by the way, is a good thing. But the world needs to sort of hit its nose against the wall before it really understands what that means. And I think there will be something around this infrastructure and its vulnerability. And then we will learn, I think, what probably is the biggest collective challenge is how to secure ourselves in terms of cyber as an ecosystem to build what Natasha is saying. So not only we are secure, but our suppliers are secure, our clients are secure, our business partners are secure. How do we make that security pervasive? Not everybody, sitting in their own house with the doors locked, but to have a safe neighborhood or a safe city. I think this will really be, in the next 2 years, some of the major things that will happen.
Okay, thank you so much, Johan. And Slavik, what's your view on the next couple of years?
Well, we locked in this couple of years, of course. And, you said that, we are living in the bad times, and, I have a completely different, it's different. Music in the past, in 80s, was better than now, right? And actually, in 20 years, we'll say something similar. So no, to be fair, I'm optimistic. I believe banking will be there. There will be new demographics upcoming, which we need to manage. Technology-wise, I think what Natasha and all my fantastic colleagues said, I think, it is, yes, concern to some extent is opportunity. For me, big question is about people. Is the Great Recession will continue? I think it will. Basically, people want freedom, and this new generations wants freedom. They don't work for companies. They don't work for brands. They work for interesting topics or interesting leaders. That's the fact, I'm afraid. Okay. Right. So this is a lot of job for us to do in the next upcoming years. But I definitely convinced it will be different and it will be interesting, and I'm looking forward.
Great. Niels, your view in 30 seconds. What's the future going to look like?
To the way I see it, based on what I'm learning from my research, companies will increasingly rely on data-driven leaders that make it safe to learn. And it's by learning, by testing and learning, that they're going to be much better at navigating all of these uncertainties and generating more value faster from a portfolio of digital innovation initiatives. So there's going to be a lot more focus on making it safe to learn rather than to fail. Okay,
great. And with that, we come to the end of this panel. And so I would like to thank all of you, Slavik, Axel, Johan, Natasha, and Niels, of course, for your contributions. We're going to kick you out of this panel now so that we can announce the winner of the European Digital Leader of the Year. So let me first remove all of you. So Niels, I think we're almost ready.
Yes.
To announce who the winner is. Can you explain us again the process that we do?
Sure. So once again, thank you to the entire jury, the selection committee. These are past winners from now over 10 years of winners, and they have reviewed the overview document and then voted by allocating 10 points across the finalists. And they can allocate them however they want, depending on how each of the finalists, of the jury members rather, decided who should deserve how many points relative to the others. And then we add them up, and that's how we get a winner from all of this.
And so it's now my pleasure to first of all announce who's the runner-up, because it's like in many years, it's always a close battle between a couple of finalists and candidates here. And so I first want to announce the runner-up, and then I will announce the winner. So The runner-up for the European Digital Leader of the Year in the finance industry is, congratulations, Sławomir Sarzyński from ING Bank Poland. Very well done, congratulations. You should be proud. And then, and we don't have the time, so we need to move forward. And so now is the time to announce the winner of this year's European Digital Leader of the Year program. And so here's some fanfare, and then we will announce who the winner is. And the winner of the European Digital Leader of the Year 2023 in the finance sector is Dr. Axel Schell of Allianz Technology. Congratulations, Axel. I'm going to bring you here on screen, but maybe Niels first, you can explain why the jury has selected Axel here in this category.
There were many, many things that stood out for the jury. I'll just highlight a few of them. Axel's approach to reducing complexity, because as he notes in the TV interview, complexity does not scale, right? And so really focusing on simplicity at scale, and the way he's done that is by first bringing in the rest of the business to get them to simplify what products to really focus on and which ones not to, what processes to focus on and which ones not to, and then having IT simplify accordingly. This is amazing for an organization that is so huge, right? 50,000 just in the IT group. Congratulations, Axel. There's a lot to learn from what you've accomplished.
Thank you. And I will, of course, pass the big thanks and the honor to the teams. I mean, it's not, as you said, the leader alone, it's the organization, the teams that deserve it. But thank you very much.
Congratulations.
Okay. Axel, so yeah, congratulations from the whole team, from the jury, from the whole community, and of course, everybody in your organization. This is quite an achievement. I would say we were all very, very much very impressed. And so with that, ladies and gentlemen, it's now time. Let me do it like this. It's now time to take a small break. So we're gonna